Whether it is the summertime in the northern part of the world or the winter time in the northern part of the world and the summertime down here in the southern part of the world, different parts of the earth get different amounts of energy from the sun. Now, the middle of the earth right here is called the equator, and it is smack dab between the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, and it gets about equal amount of sunlight from the earth no matter what season it is. Now, if you notice, the very top here of the northern hemisphere in the summertime, it's sunny almost all the time. Whereas in the winter time, it gets almost no sunlight during the winter time. And so the seasons become more extreme the further you get from the middle of the earth. The same is true for the southern hemisphere as it is for the northern hemisphere. So if you look at the middle of the earth right here, this little band that goes around the middle at the equator is sometimes called the tropical zone. Now, each of the zones I'm going to tell you about are known as climate zones, which means that different parts of the world get similar amounts of energy from the sun, similar kinds of water, and so they have similar types of biomes. So the climate of the tropical climate zone is very hot and creates a lot of moisture, which we're going to learn how that works in future lessons. But because of this, it creates tropical rainforests like the Amazon. Now, as you get further away from the equator on both the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, that's when you get into what is known as the warm zone. But don't let that fool you. The warm zone isn't just warm, it can be very hot. This is where you find a lot of the deserts in the world. As you get even further north and further south of the warm zones, you hit what is known as the temperate zones. Now, this is where you find temperate forests and plains and things like that. In this area of the world, you get 4 distinct seasons. You get a summer, a spring, a winter, and a fall, and you can tell the difference between each of those seasons. It might snow in the winter and be very hot during the summer. The last climate zone is at the very top of the earth and the very bottom of the earth. And this is known as the Arctic or the cold climate zone. And this is where it can get very, very cold in the winter. And even though it gets a lot of sun in the summertime, it doesn't get quite enough sun in the summertime to melt away all the ice. And so this is where you get the Arctic Ocean and Antarctica, which is a landmass covered in ice. And we're going to learn about how these climate zones affect the biomes and the way that the world works, how the rain clouds created around the tropical zone can affect the weather up here in the temperate zone.